Hi, everybody. This is the Flat Earth Reviewer, joined once again by my colleague George. He's here in the studio. Say hi, George.
Hey guys, how's it going?
So, George, I've got a question for you. Do you like to read?
Yeah, every now and then I like to read.
Okay, are you into like sci-fi?
I don't read sci-fi books as much, but I mean, for obvious reasons.
Right, yeah. Well, today we're actually going to be discussing a really popular sci-fi film, which was based on a really popular sci-fi book. And that book and film is The Martian, the book by Andy Weir and the film by the director Ridley Scott. And we both recently watched this just the other night together, and we kind of had a laugh about it because there's some suspension of disbelief.
Yeah. Like in our last review, I mentioned that I was able to suspend my disbelief a little bit when they reference a, a planet Earth, but I don't know. I don't know if I can do it with this one. We reviewed Interstellar 2 weeks ago, and there is this scene where you see the planet Earth around Earth, which is fake. But in this one, there's a very specific scene where it requires or has the people, what was it, slingshotting around planet Earth.
Yeah, exactly. They had to slingshot around the Earth. And see, it's funny that you bring that up now, because last time, that was kind of my issue with Interstellar, was the whole gravity, trying to get off Earth because of the gravity. And I just see this kind of as an extension. But I will agree in that Interstellar is already more of a stretch because it's in the future. It's, far in the future. And
Sure,
they're not pretending to be quite as scientifically accurate. I know it's hailed as a super accurate movie, but obviously it's more fictional. Whereas The Martian, people are saying, "Oh, this is totally possible." But it's like, come on. Okay, first of all, we're not getting to Mars.
yeah. No, I don't know where that came up. This stupid theory that we can go to Mars. It's fun to think about. I think we as humans like to explore things. And it's fun to think about, but at the end of the day, we're just not there yet. We're not going there.
Yeah, and I mean, we haven't been to the moon. It's
Exactly.
like the technology just does not exist.
Exactly.
On the topic of exploration, it's kind of interesting. This week was Columbus Day, it was still this week was Columbus Day, and I was just thinking about how history is so infatuated with the explorers and with the people that discover new things, like Neil Armstrong is this great American hero when in reality he was an actor.
Yeah. And that fascination with explorers, back then when there were explorers to explore things, they had all that fame, but now there's nothing left to explore, and so we make up these silly stories about going to Mars. And like I said, it's fun to think about, but it's not going to actually happen.
Well, that kind of brings me to the big modern space, the space pioneer of today, Elon Musk. And
right,
I'm sure all of you have heard a thing or two about him recently. He's kind of been at the center of some controversies, and in some ways I see The Martian as almost a propaganda piece for SpaceX.
Yeah, I didn't agree with you a couple weeks ago when we were talking about Interstellar, about it being propaganda, or at least in the sense that it's intentional, but I can't ignore it now. Elon Musk being so close to, being a so-called like scientist or expert about space exploration, making SpaceX and pretending to send a Tesla into space. He can't be that close to it and be ignorant about the truth. Whereas I could say that some directors and some people in Hollywood, there's a possibility that they are just ignorant. I can't say that same thing about Elon Musk. And even though he wasn't directly tied to the film or the book, The Martian, he is perpetuating this belief that we can go to Mars, and all of this confusion can be tied back to him.
Well, you say that he's not directly tied to it. I don't know that we know that he wasn't, though. I mean, could he be on the payroll?
That's true. I hadn't considered that, but even if he wasn't, his influence is seen. I mean, his influence is
felt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's felt in the movie for sure, and I'd say in the book as well. And the thing about him is that he does movies. He was in like Iron Man 3 or whatever, or
yeah,
2?
I think it was the second one.
Was it? Oh, okay, 2.
Yeah,
Yeah, those movies are dumb. Well, I mean, I'm not a fan. Sorry, I don't mean to offend any Marvel fans, but I'm not a huge fan of those.
Yeah, ever since they brought in, I mean, there's space. I'm using finger quotes here. Space exploration there. Yeah, I mean, ever since he went through that like wormhole or something, I don't know.
It's just very weird to me, the whole thing. It's kind of for kids. Anyway, that's not really what we're talking about. Sorry, I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here, but Elon Musk was also in I think he was on an episode of The Big Bang Theory, which I don't know why anyone would go on that show, but
yeah. Well, I don't think I'm in the minority here saying The Big Bang Theory is just they try to portray these intelligent people, but I mean, come on, guys, like they're not even that convincing that they're smart people.
Yeah, they're mostly just losers. I mean, I'm convinced they're losers. I'm not convinced they're intelligent.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But my point being, Elon Musk is clearly he has ties with Hollywood.
Sure. He's a little bit of an icon.
Yeah, I'd say a little more than a little bit of an icon. He's
a dangerous icon.
Yeah, he's recognizable almost to the point of being an idol, and I use that in the traditional sense of idol worship.
Yeah, in a very biblical sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever your religion is, I think we're all striving to be a part of the truth, but. And then this idol comes along and distracts us from it. Yeah.
So, Musk's that's tough to say. His influence is felt in the movie, but otherwise, ignoring that aspect of it, what did you think of the film as a film?
I've always been a fan of Matt Damon. Obviously excluding some other notable roles. But, I think that the CGI was good. I feel like it's very clear that the special effects industry has grown enormously since the first moon landing video. But we can make it look like we're going to Mars really well, I think. But not, like I said, it's convincing us that we can actually go there, and that halts my appreciation for the film.
Okay, are you familiar with the term assets in filmmaking?
Sure.
Yeah, you have for those that might not be familiar, you have these assets that you can plug in and use in CGI, and I am fairly convinced that NASA's assets are being licensed out to Hollywood, or maybe it's the other way around. I don't know. We could get into that.
Yeah, they're sharing it somehow.
Yeah, there's definitely some cross promotion here between NASA and Hollywood.
Yeah, and I mean, how do you think NASA has been around for so long? How does it get funding for just like telling lies? It's because it has ties to Hollywood, and Hollywood is keeping it in the public eye for us to believe in, this ridiculous story about a round planet, Earth. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and speaking of ridiculous stories, just beyond the whole Earth element, obviously the gravitational slingshot, all that stuff is just pseudo-science. But what did you think of the way he survives on the planet? Assuming these things are possible, assuming we could ever even get to Mars, isn't it a bit of a stretch to think that he could survive for that long?
Yeah, absolutely. And growing plants on Mars, I don't know. It was Yeah, yeah, and it was a stretch. I mean, the only plants that exist are on Earth.
Yeah, it's that level of smugness I feel like that we see in Matt Damon's character. You know, oh, I'm the first person to colonize another planet. He calls himself a space pirate at some point. There are these things that they do to make him out to be this hero and this funny and likable person. And I think that that's all part of the messaging as well. You know, the
Yeah, I mean that's one of the basics of storytelling, and you know, storytelling is a very old and ancient art, and people have been convinced to root for the bad guy for a very long time.
yeah, it's kind of like calling evil good and good evil. You know,
Exactly.
there's a cult of personality surrounding some of these public figures, especially explorers and astronauts and these pioneers. Look at Steve Jobs, for example. That that's basically a religion surrounding that guy.
Yeah, and if you look at any kind of proof, he was kind of not that great of a person. So I don't see why people are praising him or worshiping him in the same way that I don't know why people are worshiping Elon Musk.
Yeah, and the same could be said for really any of these big figures today, Bill Gates, and going back and through history. You know, there's Albert Einstein, Isaac Newton, Christopher Columbus, any of these people. You look at them, and history says these are the pioneers. But when you think about it, are we, as the people that have the truth, are we the pioneers?
You could certainly say it like that, but I think that word pioneer is going to be given to the people who you know the saying that the winners always get to write the history books.
Yeah, right.
We're in a very small minority of people who know the truth, and I'm hesitant to say that we'll be given that accolade of being a pioneer, because sometimes it feels like we're fighting a losing battle.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. As long as they're the ones writing the history books, as long as public education continues the way it is, I would say that certainly there's a level of historical kind of, I'm trying to think of a better word than whitewashing, because that's kind of got a different context these days, but they're essentially trying to sanitize.
Yeah.
They're trying to sanitize the history. They're trying to say, this is how things are. You know, this is how we should think about these certain figures. When in reality, a lot of them, most of them, I would say, are their message is being either twisted or their message was not good to begin with.
Yeah, and we like to tell these stories about like the ragtag group of people with all the odds going against them and succeeding, but they don't ever tell stories about those small minorities if they fail. You know.
Yeah, and
So the responsibility, I guess, is on us to spread the truth so that we can. And it's not about deserving the praise, but you know we want to be in a world where our efforts to spread the truth is recognized.
yeah, and like you were saying, it feels like we're losing the battle. I think that I have a belief that truth will eventually prevail over the lies, but it is hard to maintain that when you're constantly being bombarded with this messaging from Hollywood.
Yeah. Although I will say we are growing. You know, for a very, very long time, there wasn't, it was pretty much widely accepted that Earth was round. And in recent years, the truth has been kind of unraveling a little bit, and more people are catching on. While I do sometimes, at night think that we're in a losing battle, I think if you look at the numbers, we're growing and we're rising, and there's hope for us.
Yeah, there's definitely a community that's being constructed, and there are certain figures, obviously, that are more in the public eye. B.O.B., for example, Kyrie Irving, although he
Sure.
recently kind of stepped back. I don't really know what the deal is with him. He didn't say that he didn't believe it. He just apologized for ever saying it to begin with.
Well, I mean, can you imagine the behind the scenes of it? Threatening to take away all of his money or deals or whatever he has if he continues. It's all just. But I guess the question is, we all know that those background dealings are happening, but where does it trace back to? Is the NBA in the hands of NASA, or is NASA the top dog, or is it all Hollywood? Where does this propaganda start from?
Well, they're all connected at the end of the day. There are however many 3 or 4 or 5 major media conglomerates, and I think they all kind of decide on their own what the messaging is going to be. I mean, I think they kind of have a consensus together, but they spread that through their various channels, be it the NBA, be it any Hollywood film, even through novels. I mean, The Martian itself is a novel that really idealizes this space exploration. Absolutely. And I think these people all have ties to the government. So ultimately, it is coming down from them. The government is kind of providing the general direction, and all of these media companies just roll with it.
Okay. So I guess my question is there a man on top? Is there one person? Like, is it Obama, or is it, did it start back with JFK? I don't know who's the man at the top.
So, I mean, there are certainly theories, but what I believe personally is that the Rothschilds are bankrolling the whole thing. You got to follow the money. The Rothschild family they're an old, I don't know if you've heard of them before.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Okay. So they're this, for anyone that might not know, they're a very old banking family from Europe, and they essentially control everything. Everything goes back to them. You can see the money coming, kind of trickling down through the media and through the various outlets, and you could trace it all back to them. And I personally believe that they're kind of at the top of it all.
I wonder if we'll ever get to know for sure who's at the top, but for now, it's up to us as a community to share the truth and be hopefully we'll get that term. We'll be pioneers. Yeah,
we'll see. Back to the movie real quick, though. What did you think of the other performances outside of Matt Damon? I mean, you say you like him. I'm not a huge Matt Damon fan myself. I think his politics are all over the place, and that he's kind of another Hollywood shill. But I have to say, he does make that character likable. Kind of in spite of everything, that character is fairly likable. And I was wondering how you felt about the other characters.
Largely forgettable. It's like you say that Matt Damon is just part of the machine. Like, he's a cog in the machine. I kind of felt like some of the other performances, being forgettable, like they didn't feel as passionately about. They didn't feel as passionately about the cause of convincing us, the propaganda, the piece. So I wonder what their role is in the machine. Like, are they getting paid? Are they ignorant? Do they know the truth? Or do they possibly regret sharing the propaganda?
I see what you're getting at, and I think it kind of depends. It's a case-by-case thing. I mean, look at Donald Glover. He's in it briefly, kind of inexplicably. I don't know, his character kind of comes out of nowhere, but when you think about everything he's doing now, he's kind of the figurehead of the woke movement, and I think that that's representative of him being part of the puppetry. And then you see that, Kristen Wiig is in it. She's a major SNL player, and SNL is all messaging. It's all part of the system to brainwash people into thinking a certain way. So I would say that a lot of them certainly do have some idea of what's going on behind the scenes or are directly involved in those backroom dealings, but others are probably just doing it for the paycheck.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. It was kind of. I mean, it's not like by the time the movie came out that Donald Glover was a nobody. It was just taking roles because he needed to get his name out there. He took on a small role in a piece that I suppose can only be boiled down to that he wanted some part in the propaganda. And interestingly enough, that same kind of surprise role by an A-lister was performed by Matt Damon in Interstellar.
Oh, I forget. I didn't even make that connection. You're
So,
right.
so it seems like there's these actors who take these small roles who normally it seems like why would they take that small role? They probably didn't get a very very big paycheck for that. But I wonder if they are giving up their talents so that they can further the cause of propaganda.
Yeah, I can see. I see what you mean, and I know that Matt Damon's also been showing up in very, very small roles in Marvel movies. I heard he was in one of the Deadpools, and I think he was in one of the Thor movies for a second.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of just building some recognition for him,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get people to see him. If you plaster his face everywhere, he'll be this likable person that everybody wants to, hang out with, and it'll make the messaging of his films more tolerable, I guess, in the public eye.
Absolutely.
And also his political opinions as well as a person. I think people will see those and say, hey, I like Matt Damon, and maybe I agree with what he thinks.
Yeah, I agree. Though, I mean, the more we talk about it, I started out skeptical, but the more we talk about it, there's a lot of evidence going against him.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a part of the machine. I'm forgetting, I'm spacing on his name right now, the Dumb and Dumber guy, Jeff, what is it? Jeff something. The NASA director in the movie. You looking it up?
Yeah, I'll look it up.
Yeah, really spacing on his name right now, but he's the kind of guy that I don't know that he's doing it for the...
Jeff Daniels.
Oh, Jeff Daniels. I don't know that he's doing it for the... Oh, no, you know what? I take it back. I was going to say I think he's just doing it for the paycheck, but have you seen the most honest 2 minutes in television history? Have you seen that video? It makes the rounds occasionally.
No.
I'm 95% sure he's the one that's in that video. It's from, I want to say it's from like a Showtime or HBO show, and basically he just rails on anything that doesn't fit the liberal mainstream narrative in that video, in that clip. So now that I think about it, yeah, I think he's probably also another cog in this machine.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there are other characters. The blonde girl that's watching the satellite. I don't even know who that is. She could just be in it for the paycheck.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of those people in Hollywood. It's hard to say where each actor lies. Are they a cog in the machine, or are they being paid by the machine?
Yeah, that's a good way of phrasing it, because some of them, it's like your argument last week, or 2 weeks ago, which I still disagree with, which is that Christopher Nolan is just being paid. He's not actually a cog. I think he could be a cog, but you have a different opinion. I respect that. We're allowed to have different opinions, but I think it's an interesting commentary that we can piece these things together just over the course of a conversation. It's so apparent to us, and in that sense, I think that's why we're the pioneers. Other people can't see it, but it's so clear to us.
Yeah.
Overall, how would you rate The Martian?
Well, I mean, like I said, the CGI was good, but the whole slingshot around planet Earth it just ruins it for me. I'd give it a 3.
3?
Yeah.
I'm going to go a little higher. Like I said, I thought that Matt Damon made the character likable. As a film, I'd probably give it a 4 or a 5. But obviously, with the propaganda, it makes it a 1. like last week or
Oh, yeah.
2 weeks ago, like with Interstellar. I just can't really see past that. But what I'm saying is that I enjoyed the film elements of it more than Interstellar because I thought Interstellar was boring. At least this movie had something going on in it. You know, there's a survival element and there's kind of some suspense, and I thought that part was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what the difference between the two movies is that in Interstellar they deal with the gravity of other planets, and that's kind of the focus. But this one assumes gravity of a planet Earth, which I don't know. It stops there.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. So obviously this movie was based on the book The Martian by Andy Weir, which I believe is another propaganda piece. But I actually wanted to tell you about something that I'm thinking about starting on Instagram.
Okay.
I'd like to start kind of a book club where I talk about books that were independently published or were published by smaller publication houses, I guess, because I see a lot of these books, a lot of mainstream books as being part of the messaging. I think there's a lot of value in reading, and there's a lot of value in reading for fun. I don't personally enjoy reading a lot of nonfiction, but it's hard to find fiction that fits my worldview, if you understand what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
my goal is to find some of those books that do help, you know, they do kind of fit into my worldview, and they promote goodness, and hopefully talk about those books a little bit online. So
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I'm
I
thinking
think that there's definitely a need for that kind of voice in that area of our culture.
yeah, I'm something I'm thinking about. So if anyone would like to see that, let me know. Also, let us know what you'd like to hear us talk about next. There's plenty of movies out there to talk about, but I wanna talk about things that people want to hear about.
Yeah.
And sorry, this week I'm a little under the weather, so if it was a little weird this week, it's probably my fault. I'm not at 100%, but hopefully next week it'll be better.
Yep, we'll see you next week.
Thanks everybody for listening. You can follow me on Instagram at Flat Earth Traveler. I'm also on SoundCloud and YouTube at Flat Earth Reviewer. And I'm on Twitter as well at Flat Earth Traveler. Sorry, I totally did that in a weird order. It's probably very confusing, but I can link all of that stuff below on YouTube, on SoundCloud. I'm pretty sure I can link those things. I'm kind of new to the platform, but I'll have to look and see. Anyway, thanks for listening. See you next week.